Hello, everybody. We are coming to the end of the year. We're already in November, and fall is doing its fall things, and the holidays are coming. But today, and actually for the whole month of November, we're going to be working on how to really observe the mind. It's more, I guess, observe the self. We're going to be working on how to observe the self. And the reason that this is so important is because anytime you want to make changes in yourself, anytime you want to do that internal work, for whether or not it's for your business or to hold more money or to have an easier time, we always have to start by observing what's already going on, so that way we can kind of start to see the patterns, the belief structures, the judgments, the thoughts. Whatever's the cause of our life is always internal, and then the effect is going to be external. So we have to really start to observe those internal states to be able to make shifts in the external world. And observation is a multi-layered skill. So actually we're going to work on it. We're going to talk about it for the whole month because honestly, I've had to read like 100 books to be able to kind of compile this information for you all in one place. So, these next 4 episodes are going to be of really high value, I think. All right. So let's just go ahead and get into it. All right. So this episode, we're going to be talking about how to observe thoughts, patterns of thoughts, rabbit holes, and stories. All right. So our mind has the ability to interact with thoughts. Now, the way that I look at it, and I'm going to just say this is how I look at it. I'm not necessarily sure that I'm like 100% right here or anything, but when I'm like reading people's energy and how things work, this is kind of what it seems like to me. So I think that our mind has the ability to think a thought on purpose, to choose a thought on purpose, for sure. But also I think that certain states that we're in come with different thought patterns that are available to us. So let's say if you're emotionally in the depths of shame and despair, the thoughts that are available to you are going to be very, very different than if you're in a state of love and belonging. And when I say that, that tracks. Now, also, I think there are, like, where you are in the world, the places that we are in the world also come with some thoughts. Like, it's funny when, you're in a place that you normally are not. You can kind of pick up on the thoughts that are in that place, right? Like, if you're at a really, really fancy hotel, you might find yourself thinking about things that normally you might not think about at your house or, any place else. So the way that I kind of look at it is our mind has the ability to interact with a thought, or to not interact with a thought, or to choose a thought to interact with on purpose. All right. So if you've never observed your thoughts before, the best way to do it is to sit quietly with yourself and just watch your thoughts go by for a couple minutes. Now, this would be like a meditation practice. And I just want to point out that I feel like when I'm listening to people talk about meditation, they're trying to quiet their mind. And that's fine. Being able to quiet the mind, I think it does a tremendous, tremendous benefit to the mental space, to the body. There's many, many reasons. But I will also share with you that I was meditating for a good few years before I got to the place where I could get my mind to actually shut up. And I'll tell you that I also faced a lot of discouragement around my meditation because I couldn't stop thinking thoughts. And I thought that I was doing it wrong. And it all just felt very annoying because on top of trying to get my mind to be quiet, my mind was shit-talking me for not only not being quiet, but now, I don't know. I feel like I was just adding energy to the thoughts. So if you're a beginner in meditation, just watching your thoughts go by, then from there you can start to want to create a little bit of space and really take your seat like as the soul, take your seat as the observer, right? So you are not your mind. Your thoughts they're just passing little bits of mental information. They're not you, right? So when you're learning to observe the mind, sitting and watching your thoughts go by is, I think, the move. I think that's the beginner's place. And if you can't, or you're not willing to do that, pretty much everything else that I'm going to say to you over the course of the month is going to be over your head. This is really the foundational practice. So how you do it is you just sit. Maybe you close your eyes, maybe you don't, but you sit still and you just watch your thoughts go by. You just let your mind kind of be. And then from there you can start to observe the quality of your thoughts. Are these thoughts positive? Are they negative? Are they mundane? Are they special? Or is there anything about them? And then from there, what you can start to do is, from there you can actually start to gain some control over your mind, because you can choose to just watch a thought go by and not engage with it. And honestly, that in itself is a power move. If you're engaging with every thought that you have, it's very, very easy to go down a rabbit hole, because thoughts also have their own thoughts attract other thoughts similar to, right? So if I was to think, I'm so magnificent, right? And then I could be like, all right, and I did my hair today. My nails are painted, I look great. Right? The thoughts kind of attract other thoughts. Now, if I was to think, I have so much to do today, I'm so overwhelmed, my thoughts are going to go in that direction. So being able to watch a thought go by and choose to engage or to disengage, not engage with it, I think is a power move. Now from here, this is a place where you can also choose to engage with the thought. So you can choose to, let's say the thought comes up and it's like, I have so much to do today. Watch the next thought. You engage with it. And then what I would do is just watch yourself with no judgment. Just watch how your mind kind of pulls things together. Does she start making a list? Does she start freaking you out? Does she start complaining, right? What's going on with that thought? So I would choose, while you're practicing this, I would watch your thoughts go by. Watch what happens when you engage with a thought. And then see if you have the ability to disengage with the thought. Now, the more thoughts you've been thinking in a direction, the harder it is to disengage for most people. Then that might not be 100% true for you. Your mind, everybody's mind works a little different. So you have to clock these things for your own self. All right. Okay. So that's the first bit of observation and how to do it. Then we can start to look for patterns of thought. Now, patterns of thought you're going to probably be a little bit more familiar with it, right? Like these are going to be thought patterns that you think all the time, right? It could be things like just making lists about your day. It could be berating yourself, or it could be praising yourself, or it could be worrying about money, or thinking about how you're going to build your empire, whatever your patterns of thought are. Now, some of them are going to be inherently negative, and you're probably going to want to tidy those up. And some of those are going to be more positive. So the observation around these things is just, where do my thoughts often go? Like, where are they often going? Right? And I'll tell you, for a couple of years, I really struggled with a lot of scarcity. And in my business, I would always kind of be worrying, and figuring things out and sorting with things. And that was a regular pattern of thought, is like, I'm not going to have enough money. And it would really, really drive behaviors, right? I would, and you can start to observe those things too. All right. So patterns of thought that go to negative places that you end up kind of frequently, I call that a rabbit hole. So if you ever hear me say going down the rabbit hole, that's what I'm talking about. They're just patterns of thought that you don't necessarily like, and you could go down. And I always feel like rabbit holes are super slippery. It's like, because you go there regularly, the neural pathways are really they get covered in a fatty sheath. So they're really literally lubed up very faster. And so you can really change your state very, very quickly. So I would start to notice, what are the rabbit holes that I go down frequently? What starts them? Where do I end up? How do I feel if I think too many thoughts, down that rabbit hole? What do I have to do to get out of a rabbit hole? And start to place these things, because the more that you understand how this works, the more ability you're going to have to be able to nip it in the bud. Like if you are the first thought of a rabbit hole, you could redirect way easier than if you're 100 thoughts into it. And for many of the people I've worked with, we're thinking probably a lot of thoughts, maybe anywhere between 60 and 200 thoughts a minute, depending on the lady I'm talking to. Most of us think thoughts pretty quickly. All right. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about in today's episode is around stories. So stories there's usually an emotional charge that's kind of wrapped up in a story, where it's one of those things that if the story's not active, it's not come up, it's not going to be bothering you. But if you were to tell the story, you were to bring it up, you would probably feel bad or feel good, feel bad or feel good or feel whatever the emotion is. So you probably want to notice what stories you have, what stories come up, what stories you're basing your decisions on, right? I'll tell you a quick story about this. So in 2021, I'd spent $100,000 on Facebook ads, and then we lost our Facebook ads account. That created so much drama in my business. It was really a tough time. I had to let go of my marketing team. I took on quite a bit of debt because I didn't fire everybody immediately as we were trying to sort the things out, and I went from making probably $30,000 a month in course sales to zero in course sales, plus all my leads, all my buyers dried up. So it was a pretty hard time for me as far as the business goes. That I had a story around, I had stories about this. I had stories that some of them I was the victim, some of them, I just didn't trust Facebook ever, to have my money ever again. I didn't want to be in relationship with this kind of business. And these stories were really, this unprocessed emotional charge that I had kind of wrapped up in these stories was dictating my business decisions, all the way until 2024. So I went 2 full years where this experience that I had and all these unprocessed emotions were really dictating, my business decisions and my business behaviors. And it cost me a lot of money because I just was like, oh, I'm just not ever willing to go through these experiences again, right? And so starting to place these things, starting to understand how these stories interact in your decision making, these are all really beautiful places to get started in observations. Now, as we get further into this month's work, we're going to do stuff that's a little bit more advanced. These are pretty basic ways of being. And so what we're doing is we're observing the conscious mind. So it's like the monologue part of the mind. We're observing that part of it. Right? And as we get into this, we're going to start to be able to observe more of the subconscious parts of it, which are a little, the water, it's more like a little deeper in the ocean, a little darker, a little harder to see in the subconscious levels. But right now we're kind of just doing the basics. Now I'm going to give you one like metaphor on being the observer before we wrap up. So I want you to imagine somebody being in the water, right? Let's say in the water. Imagine somebody being in a canoe on the water, and then imagine somebody being on the shore watching the person in the canoe on the water. All right. So if we have no ability to be separate from our thoughts, if we're just along for the ride, right? If we're following every thought that comes our way, we're like the person who's swimming in the ocean, right? And we can really get swept away in a current, and whatever the ocean's doing, we're in it. We're in it, right? Now, for people, this tends to be a really just emotionally turbulent place, right? And just think about it. You get tired, right? If you're the one that's in the ocean. Now, when we can start to see the thoughts, watch ourselves having these thoughts, it's like we're in a little boat, right? And so we're still very much impacted by the water, but we're not in the water. We have a little bit more distance. We can observe the water, but we're still on the water, right? And the third state of observation is we are watching ourselves on the water. Right? Now the same 3 points of observation kind of goes for emotional states too. But it's like if you're in the mind and you have no observation and the thoughts are just dragging you, that's the hardest place to be. If you can watch your thoughts. Now listen, watching your thoughts doesn't mean you're not going to have feelings about it. But that's level, that's level 2. And then as time goes on, you can watch yourself watching your thoughts. You can watch how you're judging your thoughts. You can watch yourself observing your thoughts, and that gives you a little bit more distance. Now, the reason that you would want to be the observer of the thoughts is because once you're onto the shore, the thoughts, listen, they still impact you, and I don't want to make it sound like if you have great observational skills that you are exempt from having feelings, because that's certainly not true. But you have much more authority over your decision making when you can see what's going on in the water. When you can see, oh, the water's real choppy today. The canoe's going to have a tough time today. My swimmer's going to have a tough time today. You can observe, you can take better care of yourself, I guess. And the more that you have space between you and the waves of the water, the better off you are, really. So it's worth it to learn how to practice these things. So as we move a little bit forward, we're going to connect the dots between how thoughts impact feelings and things like that. All right. So I love you so much, and I will see you next week. Bye, everybody.